Perception is reality in some sense, and don't be fooled by something that you believe. Back it up with science, back it up with data. Make sure that you understand where you're at and don't just take someone's word for it. Trust, but verify.
Welcome to the Industrial Cybersecurity Insider. In each episode, we dive into the world of industrial cybersecurity. Join us as we cover the latest trends, innovations, and practical insights as we talk with leaders and practitioners across the industry. Gear up and let's get into this week's episode.
Hi, my name is Dino Busalachi. Craig, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Dino?
Almost Friday.
I can't get here fast enough, brother.
NCAA basketball tournament's right around the corner. So,
this is March Madness coming up soon, isn't it?
Yeah, got to get through the division conferences, and then we'll be on our way to the NCAA championship run. So
Perfect. So what do you think we should talk about today? You want me to come up with something, or you want to come up with something?
Your turn.
All right. How about if I were to guess, let's talk about perception versus reality.
Okay.
In the OT space, meaning is an organization really prepared, or do they just believe they're prepared?
I would say they don't know what they don't know.
That's a true statement. Yeah.
Right. Hope is not a strategy. And I think a lot of them kind of fall to that particular model. We've witnessed organizations that have had material breaches, that had ransomware that just shut them down, and they've opted to pay the money to get the keys back so they can get back up and running. And we've also witnessed those that have decided to fight it and then spent the next several months trying to get out of the hole that they're in at the tune of tens of millions or more in losses. And then come out of that and still not make a move and trying to figure out how to solve this problem.
Yeah, no, and I think that we are seeing organizations continue to spend. We are seeing organizations continuing to increase budgets, but we're not seeing the attacks slow down. We are not seeing organizations be out of the woods yet, if that's a terminology. Maybe that's not the right word.
Right, they are. They're very real. And there's even bigger issues that are very costly, and that is just their internal disruption that they cause upon themselves with interrupting their ability to make goods. And they're not pursuing these tools. And I think a lot of it falls back is they just don't have the right people, most likely, in their organization really understand, one, the industrial control system environment at that particular plant. Much less, thinking that you might have 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 plants in your fleet. Well, that's a lot of dynamics. That's a lot of variables, right? Yeah. And no one or two people are going to have a good grasp of that. Somebody sitting in the enterprise from a global perspective versus what the people who work within that environment deal with day in and day out. So I would say a lot of them, they just don't have the right resources in place to do this.
Well, and some of that, you look at the budgeting, you look at you mentioned resources. Is it not so much not the right, or is it not enough? Is it not the correct skill sets that go along with that? Combination of all of those, you think? Because again, organizations they're starting to figure this out. They are really, I believe, trying to take the right steps in the right direction. And I'm seeing organizations in my daily conversations that are what we've preached for the last 5 years. You have to do something to get better, period over period. And they are getting better. I just don't know that they are where they need to be, given where the industry is and the amount of ramp time they've had in the last 5 years.
What you just said is something that the CTO from Armis just conveyed to me a little while ago, is doing something. Are you doing something? Are you really trying to understand what your blind spots are and what's critical to your operations? I would say working for one of the nation's largest system integrators, the food and bev industry, how often do we get called into a meeting on a project that we're getting ready to start developing with a client, and the CIO or the CISO or any of their people are actually sitting in the room as part of the discussion? to bring their concerns and requirements and policies and governance to the table on a $20 million piece of equipment that's going to be designed and built that's going into their plan.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
Right? I mean, the question is, why is that? Is it a comfort zone for them that they don't want to get out of their comfort zone?
Part of it, I think, or people inherently are not comfortable discussing, talking about, engaging in things that they're not familiar with. It's that step out of the box mentality. It's to get out of your comfort zone and truly own that, or truly embrace yourself and try and help figure it out. Another statistic that I saw is like around 25%. 25% of organizations do not have a comprehensive OT asset monitoring platform. Is it they're trying to get more depth and they're not comfortable with what they're getting from the platform they're using? Are they afraid to implement it? They've not rolled it out. Why? It's
like security frameworks, right? Have they chosen a security framework? And maybe IT's picked one. Maybe they're working with a security framework. But is it going across the entire organization, including your manufacturing environment, all the way down into those control systems that are sitting in that plant? And they have to get past the myth that they think those systems are isolated. If a plant tells you that these critical machines in our manufacturing environment are not connected, can they demonstrate that? And maybe they do. I would say in almost all of those particular instances, there's either a drop on the wall for them to connect that machine to the plant network for some third party to get to.
Yeah.
Or somebody walks into the plant with a computer, an engineer who's coming in to work on that, the OEM, and plugging into that.
Right.
And that machine sitting on the Wi-Fi network or has a cellular hotspot connection out. And now what they thought was not connected is connected. And at the same time, you don't know what they're doing to that machine. You don't know what the work it is that they're doing. You don't know what they're leaving, what they're taking, what they're changing. And so for those that have that mindset where the plant's saying, don't worry about that equipment, it's not online, don't believe them. It's like a gun. All guns are loaded. Yeah. Every single gun's loaded. Do you know it's unloaded or not? You treat that gun as it's loaded.
You have to.
It is, right?
Safety first. Back to safety.
Back to safety.
We're back to safety. Whether it's a gun safety, it's a plant safety. If you are the CEO of any company that has manufacturing all the way down to a facility's maintenance guy at that facility, if you go through the doors of that manufacturing facility out onto that plant, the very first thing, top of mind, I don't care who you are and what your role is, better be safety on that plant floor. It's ingrained in everyone. It's got to be the same.
And so what's happening now is if those organizations have not started driving an OT cybersecurity strategy into their manufacturing environment, just like safety, getting back to that OT ecosystem is going to start bringing tools and technology, and they already have, into your plants in order for them to be successful. We've already seen them doing that with remote access. All right. Yeah. If you don't have a really good remote access strategy, they're going to bring in their Sycomias and their E1s and their Toshi boxes and their Cradle Point cellular modems. They're going to bring in their own stuff.
They are.
And they're going to start bringing in their own OT cybersecurity tools, right, for their startups and their commissioning and for their responsibilities for maintenance and support. So they will do it with or without you.
True.
Right. So you have to decide as an organization whether you're going to try to get your arms around this or just let it be the Wild Wild West and let them do what they see, whatever they think they need to be successful.
And it's different when you talk with different business units within the organization. I'm working with a client and the manufacturing's task is I want 100% visibility onto my plant floor. And that is a great goal. And they are truly trying to achieve that. And security ops is let's put this tool out there and we'll come back and figure it out later. And we're getting about, let's call it 40% visibility. And they're okay with that. And in my mind, the very first question I said is, well, what about the 60% blind spot you have that you don't have any visibility into at all? That should scare you immensely. Well, but we're 40% better than we were, but you're 60% from where you need to be.
Yeah, and would the CIO or the CISO say the same thing about their enterprise? As far as leaving
No
off
way.
50 or 60% of the assets that they don't have any visibility into at all. They're still connected to their network,
Mhm.
but they're just ignoring them. The
Yeah.
answer to that is no. And when you go back to the safety model, every plant has one or a group of people who are responsible to ensure that the safety policies are being implemented and executed within their plant. Right. So
Right.
when somebody shows up, that they have on the proper PPE,
Yeah.
that they're working safely, maybe have gone through some type of training to be in there inside that plant. And then there's always that watchful eye. So if somebody walks
Right.
out on the plant floor without their eye protection or their hard hat or their safety shoes, somebody's going to come go get them and run them out of there,
Yep.
and fix that problem. You got to do the same thing with cybersecurity when it comes to that plant. You can have an enterprise global think on how you're going to do it, but you got to execute and you got to act locally, because those plants, somebody has to be very aware and in tune to what that cybersecurity posture is, what those activities are to ensure your cybersecurity hygiene stays intact. And so it has to be done at some level of those people that are down there touching and working with that equipment every single day.
Yeah. If we circle back around to perception versus reality, it's the same thing. If I believe I'm 80% secure, is that reality? What am I basing that? Is that gut check? Is that I think it might be? Is it based on data, reality, numbers, a continuous monitoring asset visibility tool that's telling me that? Is it a spreadsheet from 15 years ago? What data do you have to back that up? If I go to the grocery store and I stand in line and I see 6 people in front of me, I'm immediately going to say, it took me 15 minutes to get through the line. But if I were to set my watch, reality is probably about 2 or 3 minutes at the most. But if I call that store and I said, look, I stood in line for 15 minutes, there were 12 people in front of me. That's my perception. That's not reality. So you can't make decisions. If they were trying to make staffing decisions off of that, you can't make decisions based on perception, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, and what's leadership's role in that perception at the end of the day?
Yeah,
Right?
for
Because I've
sure.
worked in many facilities where corporate can set a particular policy and the plants just ignore it. I've seen
True.
that. I'll give you great examples. Remote access into the environment. For example, plants that put in their own DSL line to provide internet connectivity in there for support,
Yeah.
because they don't want to work with IT because it takes too long, it's too costly. When I need somebody in here right stinking now to get this piece of equipment back up and running, if I go the IT route, it might take me a day or two or longer to get that done versus having it there ready to go, at the beck and call when that phone rings at 2 o'clock on a Saturday night and my machine's not working. I can get an engineer in there to help me get it running.
Well, how does the organization step back one step and truly balance business need versus security posturing? What are the implications of the tools and technology that you're trying to implement on the business need? If the business need is, I must produce 100,000 widgets a day, regardless of what happens, that's okay. The business as a whole says that's important to me. But if I'm in security ops and I say, you need to implement this patch or this update, and it's going to cost you to slip down in your production to 85,000 widgets a day, is that okay? Is there a different way to achieve the same thing? Is there a different tool that still allows the business need to perform 100,000 and for security to obtain what they need in the same place?
Well,
That's what businesses are missing, I think.
that requires that you have to be in tune with the planned maintenance shutdowns and windows in
Mhm.
order to implement those updates, because they're not going to take their plant down just for a firmware update.
Oh, no way.
When they want to bring something plant down, it's usually because there's several or a dozen items of activity need to happen. That just happens to be one of them.
Yeah.
An update. The rest of it is cleaning and fixing and replacing, and
Mhm.
they bring in groups to do that and they coordinate that. And so, from an IT perspective, if your role and job is to execute improving cybersecurity posture, then you have to be in line with that and say you're going to have somebody working on a Saturday for the next 2 days, Saturday to Monday midnight, before they come back up to get your work done. And have a backup plan if your patch that you put in doesn't work.
Right.
But you got to be in tune with that. Just like I also think that those IT leadership needs to be in capital plan. So that when your company is going to spend $50 million over the next 5 years to do brownfield, greenfield, life cycle replacement, recontrol efforts, what have you, that you're in tune with that capital plan to ensure that the cybersecurity technologies and services that are required to go around those machine centers are being implemented at the time that engineering is being done. So when that machine or that skid comes into your plant, it's already got the cybersecurity components in it that you need in order to add it to your overall cybersecurity technology platforms that you have in place. All right.
Yeah. Well, it's giving organizations that false sense of security. They believe they're being protected. They believe they've got it under control. They believe that perception is we're all good. We got this. No worries. We're fine. But the reality is there are still blind spots within that manufacturing controls environment that they're not even aware. Back to they don't know what they don't know.
Well, has
And
everybody bought into it? Has the plant manager bought into it? Has engineering bought into it? Has operations bought into it? Has the production teams have bought into it? Or the OEMs bought into it? You got a lot of selling to do, right?
yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
For sure. And there's a lot of stopgaps and a lot of, I wouldn't say single contributors, but a lot of gating factors that have the authority to stop that plan at any point that it doesn't make sense for their business unit or their piece within that strategy.
Well, and then so that circles back around to security framework.
Yeah.
Do you have one? Pick one.
Right.
And start somewhere, right? You need to be able to begin somewhere. And if you have a framework, start working it and just don't stop at the enterprise or just a few areas within the plant. You got to consider all four corners of that manufacturing facility when you're going through this exercise, right? It just can't stop at IT and at the network and at the systems that IT controls, because there's thousands of assets out there that are not underneath the domain of IT's control.
True. Yeah.
Thousands of them, right?
Well, there are more than there are on the IT side. So yeah.
And back to your blind spots, right?
Right.
So what steps should they be taking? Framework. You have a framework. And start counting it through, not only just internally, but externally to your partners that are responsible for designing and building and maintaining and supporting those machine centers that you have.
Well, again, back to that asset visibility. You can't protect what you can't see. It's hard to do that. I know we talk a lot about the SANS 5 critical paths for OT security and how they should leverage that as part of that framework and say, okay, where are we protected? Where are we not protected? And what do we need to focus on? You start with, okay, let's pick our crown jewels. Let's pick our critical processes. You got to start somewhere.
Right. Arterial plants. If you got 50 plants, which ones are your top 10? Your highest producing, manufacturing facilities, and then start with your A's, and then make your way to your B's, and then make your way to your C's, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's still some work to be done in the space. I think for organizations, again, you got to choose a partner that's aligned with what your business units and your business direction is. Someone that's in your space that understands what you do as an organization fundamentally, that understands control system integration, that understands process, and has access and a familiarity with the tools and the technologies that are OT centric, built for this environment, and start making friends with them. You got to start somewhere.
And there's no reason not to have started, meaning that this is not new. What you're going to experience and what comes at you is going to be new. But if this is just your entrance into this journey, don't go alone.
No,
go find organizations that are out there that are doing this and have been doing this for a number of years, right? And help educate your teams. I don't think that you've got the smartest cat in your organization that's got this all figured out, because they don't. There's no way that they do.
No.
Otherwise, you'd be moving down the road and you'd already have a tool, you'd have it up and running, you'd have your governance, you'd have your framework, you'd have your policies, you'd have your arms around your OEMs and system integrators to get them into the fold and what it is that you're trying to accomplish. You'd be doing all of that stuff right now.
You'd feel real warm and fuzzy about your cyber posture. And I don't know one single board or CEO that feels real warm and fuzzy that they've got everything under control and they can just kick back on their heels and let it coast.
No,
it doesn't happen.
Doesn't exist.
Nope.
The threat vectors keep expanding. The bad actors are getting smarter. Now you're starting to add AI into the mix, which is going to speed things up, good, bad, and indifferent in regards to this. So it's a constant battle, and you got to be diligent, and you got to try to stay in front of it as much as you can. You're not going to have the internal resources to pull this off. I don't care if you're a Fortune 1. You're going to have to rely on partners to help you get through this.
Yeah, totally agreed. Great conversation, Dino. This hopefully brings some enlightenment to organizations that are trying to, again, go down this path, trying to figure this out. Perception is reality in some sense, and don't be fooled by something that you believe. Back it up with science, back it up with data. Make sure that you understand where you're at and don't just take someone's word for it. Trust, but verify. Verify the data.
And your cybersecurity plan should encompass everything, right? Just like safety, back to that safety model. I don't care if it's the floor sweeper in the plant, all the way up to the plant manager. The safety protocols and governance and responsibility is the same for the plant manager as it is for the person sweeping the floors or running the operator on the line. They all know their responsibility to safety. You got to take cybersecurity the same way.
Yeah, for sure.
That level, that person, and anybody who has responsibility for technology within your manufacturing facility should have a base understanding of the cybersecurity protocols and responsibilities, policy governance, and responsibilities on securing and protecting those assets, right? And the tools that you're using to do that. Not that they have to be the experts on it, but at least they know what the basics are.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Appreciate everyone listening and following. Continue for additional information, for learning tips, and we're here to help in any way we can. You guys have a great day.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in to the Industrial Cybersecurity Insider. To stay up to date with our latest episodes, be sure to click the follow or subscribe button now. And if you found this podcast helpful or have a topic you'd like us to discuss, please leave us a review or let us know. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.